I would like to introduce today's speaker, Mr. John Kenney, CEO of Cotney Consulting and author of The Blueprints to Your Business, A Guide to Managing Your Roofing Business. John has worked for over 45 years in the construction industry, taking on leadership roles with the West Coast Roofing Contractors Association and lending his expertise to multiple top 100 roofing contractors. John joins us today from Tampa, Florida. So thank you, John, so much for being here today.
Hey, Liz, thank you. Looking forward to being here, speaking to your audience. Hope everybody's doing well. As you said, it's a beautiful day here in Tampa, Florida as well. We're already well into our 90s. So summer's here. We're ready to move on. So a little bit, I want to just touch a little bit. So you brought up about my background. Yes, so I spent 45 years in the roofing side of the construction industry, started in my teenage years, all the way up to current. I'm currently now working at Cotney Attorneys and Consultants. And what they are is they're a full service, both on the attorney side and the consultant side that specialize in the roofing industry and other sub trades and other industries in construction. So that's how we make the connection, why I'm over here on this side compared to where I was, so that everybody now understands the connection, which makes a whole lot of sense. So I want to talk a little bit here about my book that you see here, Blueprints to Your Success. So the thing about this is I just published this. It came out in, I believe, the end of February, beginning of March. So I know there's some folks on here that have signed up and going to receive a copy. So I look forward to getting that out to you. I'll give you a little bit about this. So what I found through my years, no matter what I tried to research or have some help throughout the years, I could never find anything that really tied back into what we all do. Now, what I mean by that, this is whether you're on the home side, residential, you're on the commercial side, roofing, our industry, remodeling, it's all specialized industry. So I wrote this to try to help you through the entire aspects of your business, a little introduction to what the industry is like. So if you're new to the industry, it's good for you. If you've been in a little while, I think it's great too. And more importantly, if you're in this for a while, this is a fantastic book for you to follow along to see how to improve your business, how the different strategies are. We cover everything from sales to estimating to risk management, contract reviews. We've got it all in it, and technology at the end of the book as well. So I just want to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, it is a good read. I'll give it that. All righty. Well, the floor is yours, John.
All right. And we're going in here. I want to get into our first slide that we're going to cover today is a little bit on the statistics side. What's important about this is a study came back to us from the Joint Center of Housing Studies at Harvard University. Important thing to look at here, it starts back in second quarter of 19, covers up through 20, where we're at currently in 21 and projected out to 2022 first quarter. So the interesting thing that I want you to focus on here is look across at the the blue and the light blue graphs. The industry's done very well through this. Actually, through the pandemic, there has really been an increase coming in to where we currently are now in 2021. So, while we went through a pandemic, a lot of things have happened. A lot of industries were affected, but overall, the roofing, remodeling, and construction industry has fended very well, and it has been as good as can be expected and a lot better in most cases. On our next slide, this is takes a look here. It's from the same data center, put this together for us. So this is covering it goes all the way back to 95, and you get some patterns in here. What this is looking at is the growth and the explosion of growth in certain years due to severe storms. So this one covers up to 2019, and you can see in billions of dollars from 17 to 19, we're almost doubled the amount of work due to storm damage. So and predictably 20 was, not predictably, we looked at 2020 was an extremely active storm year. And right now, coming into 2021, it has been a very active first quarter, second quarter storm-wise all around the country. And there are areas that normally get a lot of hail and the severe weather coming up. They're expecting that for that season, which is just getting ready to kick. And there again, we have hurricane season just around the corner, which they have moved up by 15 days from what it's been earlier with the weather service. So weather has been a big factor in the industry. On this chart here, what you kind of see is the statistics of where we were in 2020 as far as the climate and the weather disasters throughout the country. The thing to take away here is you can see down along the Gulf Coast and then partially up through the East Coast, it was an active hurricane season. Now, hurricanes are an interesting dilemma in themselves, because I live here in Florida, so there's years we can go 2 or 3 years and not have a hurricane affect the state. And you can see last year was one of those. There's one that came across the southern part of our state. But if you look up in there to Louisiana and to those areas, they got 4 or 5 hurricanes were affected last year. And those rains continue with the storms to go on up through other parts of the country. So, looking in the center, you got the tornadic weather and the severe storms with hail and thunderstorms. Again, that belt that goes right on up through the south, up through the east, has been very active again this first season. So we're looking at that. Now you go out west, a lot of drought. I saw a couple of interesting articles on this and watching a news program that by the weather changes here in the east, causing the droughts in the west. This is some of the most severe droughts they found in areas that have gone back when they do their geological digs over 1,000 years. So this is a pretty severe drought. And then, of course, if you're located on the West Coast, last year was just amazingly awful. I know we went through with a lot of our clients out there in the pandemic. If they weren't shut down in areas to work with the pandemic or special rules, it was the smoke and the fire damage all up and down the western part of the United States. So it was definitely an interesting year. So what's our outlook for contractors coming up? Which is what we all want to do, is kind of take a look at the past and then take a great peek into the future. So broke this down into the positive side and the negative side. So on the positive side, definitely what we've seen coming through the 2020 era and through the pandemic, contractors who invested heavily in technology or prior to pandemic, with their processes, they definitely fared better. We're seeing that industry-wide, regardless of what end of the construction you're in. If you were already on board with technology or made that jump in there, you did very well coming through the pandemic. And technology is not something that's going to go away. We definitely are going to see it increase more and more. Got to get on board with it. It's coming. What we would have seen in 10 years is going to be seeing in 2 years. So a lot of technology advances out there. So then another interesting positive is, due to the pandemic, we've seen that where homeowners reduce seeking multiple bids. I mean, I would kind of think of that as obvious reasons. They don't want the people coming to their houses, and hopefully they're working with trusted contractors that are recommended to them. So that should continue hopefully to reduce some of the competition of just getting multiple bids for the sake of getting bids. Another positive is in virtual sales, enable contractors to expand into service areas. I will tell you, virtual sales, softwares, even Zoom sales calls have become very popular in leading the industry forward. You're still going to see that, and you need to want to integrate that into your business going forward. This isn't going to go away, nor should it. There's going to be a mix of both the old school and the new school items of how you do this. But again, like I said, technology is the key to expansion. Low interest rates helped homeowners get more financing options. Right now, it appears the financial interest rates are going to stay at near zero. There's a little bit of talk here in the last couple of weeks that maybe to control inflation, it should go up. But right now, the Feds have taken a no, we're not going to raise policy. So for right now, we continue to see that to be a trend. So working from home helped increase investments in home projects. Absolutely a major driver. I mean, a lot of businesses went to 100% of employees working at home. A lot of businesses are staying with their employees working at home. And then there's a mix of both coming back to the office and having a chance to work at home as well. 3-2-day split, 4-1 split, sometimes 2 in, 3 out. But the point to take of this is going to continue. You're not going to see this go back to 100% in the office. The workforce has spoken. They've accepted this in your administration positions and a lot of positions in the company. Now, of course, you go out there with your workforce is out there, they're not going to work from home. They're going to work every day. But it's more your inside office type, that the administrative and so on. You're going to see that continue. So that's going to stay with us in the future, which again is good for the industry because people are going to want to improve. They want to work in a better environment, whether it's to have a new home office or just a better environment around them to work. So some of the negatives that we see coming up in the industry, supply chain issues causing material shortages. We're going to get more into detail in a few minutes here on this. Projects are getting delayed. We are seeing more and more either push-offs or delays, and a lot of that's due to the supply chain and material, which we'll be touching on. Contractors still facing recruitment challenges. This has been 20 years in the making, if not longer. I've seen it, and I remember talking about this even in the late 80s into the 90s, that we're going to face these challenges. It hasn't gotten better. It's gotten worse. Lack of VOTEC training, a lack of interest into the trades at an early age. There are trends starting to switch that to get more interest in there. One is no, the college debt being down at a minimum, and it's also should be opened up for recruiting into people who have college degrees and getting them interested in our industry. There's a lot of ways of doing it, but that's something that is only going to get tighter and not easier, at least from what I see in the statistics. Over the next 5 years, I don't see any major changes other than what we're facing. And then we got homeowners may blame contractors for delayed projects. Old story, new take on it this time. Now we have back to delays in materials, price increases, supply chain issues. We're going to touch a little bit more on this, plus some communication with it. But these are the challenges coming in to the rest of this year and probably a little bit further. So we're going to cover here today. We'll put this together for you. Hopefully this will get you some, as much as you can do in a webinar, some great tips out here to work, win your homeowners' confidence and come out stronger in the end. And we say come out stronger, that's not only what the strength of that is you're going to come out with a happy client base, more repeat work, more referrals, and most importantly, profit. You want to keep that profit rolling on that bottom line and, keep that cash coming in. So, one of the things that's huge right now is material shortages. I can't tell you the nightmare stories that we're hearing throughout the industry. Even if the price of it is doubled, you still can't get some of the material. So it's not just, well, I'll pay whatever it is to get it. Availability is horrible right now. It's probably worse than it's been any time in our past at least 25 years. I mean, there's always been spurts of this, but we'll talk about what we think the length of this is going to be. So availability. So, skyrocketing prices. You all faced with the plywood and the lumber. I mean, astronomical. I wish I had the vision a year ago to invest in some of the lumber companies and that. We'd all be millionaires right now because it's doubled, and if not more. But prices are continue to skyrocket and they're doubling. Talk to some commercial manufacturers that not only make roof insulation, but make wall insulation and other insulation products. They have put a double price in. They made the announcement that it is going up by 100% for anything in June 1. Doesn't matter if you had your order in, doesn't matter what you got in the backlog. Due to chemicals and other price increases, it's doubling. So this is all the way through the industry. Supply chain issues. This is major issues. We just had, if you've been watching the news, you have the pipeline. It runs from Texas all the way up into the Northeast, supplies 45% of the fuel along the East Coast. Was hacked in here over the week. I believe it was over the weekend. They're not expecting to get it back to full capacity till at least this coming weekend. 100 million gallons a day are not shipping out. We're actually even seeing it here in Florida and up through the Carolinas where already pumps are closed. So all that's going to snowball out. So even if you're in an area not in the Northeast or the Southeast affected directly from this, you will see this snowball into other areas as well. Everything has a chain reaction. What other we see in supply issues? There's not enough truck drivers. Truck drivers don't want to deliver to certain areas. There's truck drivers don't want to haul certain materials. We're seeing that. Another thing you're going to see this summer, besides this was prior to this latest hack into the pipeline for Colonial. Well, a study came out by the petroleum industry. There is 25% fewer truck drivers just in the petroleum industry alone that's needed to keep up with the demand of our economy over the summer. So we're not even sure where that's going to be and affecting prices. So just about everything we use in construction has a petroleum base to the manufacturing part of it or in the shipping of it. So we're going to continue to see these issues. So, plan ahead. So we want to talk about, when you say plan ahead, no one really, you try to plan, you want to plan, but it's a process. So what I like to always, recommend with this is you want to manage your construction risk through pre-operational planning. So really what that comes down to is if you're going to have certain risk once you get an award on a project, you're going to have certain types of risks while you're doing the project and certain types of risk after the project. But you can limit a lot of those risks because they're tied back into the very beginning. So areas that you want to consider for risk management and looking at your any one of your operations, doesn't matter whether you're a $100,000 contractor or a $50 million contractor. These issues all pertain, they're just in different, scope levels of where you're at in your business. Schedule. That is one of the most important things to look at first. Taking on too much work, more work than you possibly can handle for whatever the reasons are, manpower and all that. Right now, it doesn't seem to be an issue of not having enough backlog. Most of the industries you saw from the charts earlier and from the different people that I'm speaking to around the construction industry, backlog's coming right now. It's building very well. Was a little hiccup at the end of the year where people were running low. Doesn't seem to be the case, and that could be a lot with the backlog of materials. But don't overschedule. That will cause tremendous amount of stress on your business. So you want to schedule correctly and efficiently. Your project, is it within your core competency? So what do we mean by core competencies? All right, we all think we can do every type of project that's out there most of the time, or we want to try one that's not what we're normally doing. Keep that in mind. So what you do best is what you're going to have the least problems with and is most risk aversive. What you don't do well is going to bring the most risk onto you at any given time. So keep that in mind when you're doing your mix of work. And I'm not saying don't try something new, don't expand, not saying don't expand your business. Those are all great things. But it's like eating ice cream or anything else. Too much of it at one time is bad. Same works with this. So know your core competencies and stick with them and add on a little at a time. Again, backlog planning. So that's a little bit different than scheduling. So backlog planning is now you've got all your contracts in front of you. You know what your salespeople are getting ready to bring into the house. It's going to hit your pipeline. You got to look at all these things. You have to look at where, materials, when they're available. You've got to lay this out throughout your company so that you completely understand where all your high and low spots are of your labor and your demands on your staff with your supervision and so on. Very, very important. This is something that gets overlooked. You worry about getting to work, you worry about ordering materials, but you want to lay this out. You want to do this on a weekly basis because schedules change. Contract and general conditions issues. So this is interesting. So if you're writing your own contracts and you're putting your own provisions in there, one, make sure they're the proper ones that protect you, right? So they may look good. You may think they're okay. I haven't had problems before. It's time to review them and make sure that you have all the conditions in there that are going to protect you in case something goes wrong against the person you're working with. You don't want to leave a loophole open where you have a lawsuit issue or you have a payment issue. Now, if you're signing a standard form of agreement, depending on the size job you're doing, that is an owner type issue contract that they're issuing, or if you're working even as a sub for a general contractor on a project, whatever the deal may be, you want to take a look at that to make sure those conditions are not flow down risk from the top down and you're left holding the bag. So you want to go through those and double check on where you're at. Get with an attorney, get with a trusted advisor or your organizations, whatever, but check it. Insurance. So you want to do your insurance checkups on a fairly regular basis, even though you may review on a yearly basis. Your insurance agent should be one of your best friends. You want to make sure that you have proper coverage. You want to make sure you're covered for all the you-know-whats. You want to make sure if something happens and it's a catastrophe, that you have coverage that'll handle it. You also want to make sure that it's no flow down that comes back to your insurance. You want to make sure your agreements are not taking the risk from the top end, whether it be the owner or general contractor that you may be working for, and puts it all back on you. So again, you want to be very risk adverse with your insurance. So smaller risks, those there are the ones you really don't think about. They could be anything. They could be what's going on your job site, what you're handling with your employees. There are smaller ones that kind of get by. You want to look at those on a regular basis.
Hey,
So
John, we
again,
actually,
yeah,
sorry to interject. I have our first question. Dave
okay,
wrote in, can you explain more on how backlog planning is something different from scheduling?
sure. Okay, so that's a great question. That's why I said it is different. So let's look at just scheduling. All scheduling really matters at the beginning is what you've got coming in through your pipeline on a closed contract, right? So you're looking at your scheduling, stacking that up based upon where your openings are or what you know to be filled up at that moment. Okay, once you get that awarded contract, it is not any longer a scheduling issue. It becomes a backlog scheduling issue, right? So scheduling's in the front end. That works with your sales team so that you don't oversell in any period of time that you're aware of at that point. Once you get into the backlog review, you want to review the progress of your jobs. So let's just use this as a simple example. You have jobs that were supposed to start here on May 1st, and they were going to last 30 days, and you have 5 of them. Now, 2 of them got pushed off, 3 of them started, and 1 of them's way behind schedule. Now that becomes a backlog because another one's going to move to 2 of them are moving to a new start date, which pushes that off. 2 of them are running well, and 1 of them is going to run over, so it's going to go 45 days. Now you have manpower allocated to them, or you have subcontractors allocated to them. So that becomes a backlog risk management because 1, maybe you don't have the manpower at 6 weeks from now to handle the ones that got pushed off, or you've got too much manpower sitting available with nothing to do. So that's where you get into reviewing your backlog. You know, if you're looking ahead by 3 to 4 weeks, and that's a good tip there to take. Really, this is only accurate out 3 to 4 weeks, even though you're going to want to look 6 to 12 on backlog because your jobs move so much. But it helps you be prepared to not have too much manpower sitting around, not enough manpower, and not have the materials delivered that you haven't been able to move off. Or look at now in this situation, sometimes you may have to take that material because if the job gets pushed and the material, you don't want to push it because you may not get it when you want it later. So where do you store it, right? All these things come into your backlog planning. Hopefully that answered your question. So again, one of the things that changes, plan, right? Change is constant. So no matter how well your plans are, or how well you plan, or your backlog reviews, every day you wake up, something's probably going to change. Some will be major, some will be minor, some will be unnoticeable. So that's why you do these on a consistent basis. I always recommend weekly, your weekly meetings with your team. Even if you're getting updates daily, you want to do a little bit more thorough planning and look at your plans on a weekly basis to make sure everything is moving as you plan. So change is constant. Look back and review. Know your organization. What I mean by knowing your organization, know your strengths and know your weaknesses, and work to improve your weaknesses and work to capture your strengths, abilities to move you further ahead. Again, what is a strength today could possibly be a weakness tomorrow if something's not watched, and vice versa. You want to, your strengths, weaknesses become strengths. So you want to keep looking. So the process to do that is real simple. You identify the issues, you identify the positives, you identify the negatives. You just want to review them. You want to replan and develop a proper course of action. And these are going to be adjusted as they need to be. There's no real rule of thumb to this. It could be a weekly, it could be every 3 or 4 weeks, depending on size of your organization and the amount of change going on. Communicate with all stakeholders. So this has been a staple of my career that communication is the key to success. I've never worked with, or saw an organization that can be successful if they have not mastered the ability to communicate properly. So we're going to get into a little bit of that on the next slide, but communicate regularly. What I mean is you don't want to, it's not just something, how's your day going? Everything going all right? Your communication needs to be almost a process, well, not almost, it does need to be a process-driven idea, right? You want to communicate both internally with all your folks, and you want to communicate what's the same thing that's needed externally, not only to the homeowner that you're working for. You want to keep your vendors in the loop, you want to keep your trusted subs in the loop, and you want to keep your trusted outside partners. So again, communication. So example, you want to put, risk analysis, take and run through your processes of how you would communicate. Pick an issue, run directly down that line of, in your company and say, what do I do to communicate the fact that this job got moved off, whatever, schedule 3 weeks, right? I gotta let my foreman's gonna let me know, or maybe my salesman found out. So you have to have that process in place. Who needs to know all that information? And you need to communicate it with your homeowner, and you need to communicate it with your vendors, right? So communication is key to success. So want to cover here, communicate clearly with your homeowners, right? So that's the key word here is clearly. So we're going to cover verbal and written communications, right? So verbal, we know what that is. We're doing that right now. We're having a chat. Written communications, commonly known as CYA. You're following up. We'll touch a little bit more of that in a written format. Doesn't necessarily have to be a formal letter. Doesn't necessarily have to be hand delivered. It could be an email, but you want to clearly, cover yourself. And it also keeps from having an issue where someone doesn't understand. That happens in verbal. So here's some keys, whether it's verbal or written. Always be truthful, right? ABT. I don't care what the issue is. I have always found in my career, even if there was a disaster on the job, somebody messed up, no matter what it was, truth is what mattered. I didn't get the truth from the people under me. I could not figure out and help them figure out a solution to that problem. So I always have driven that in from all my teams from the ground up, is always tell the truth. You will never get in trouble for telling the truth, but we cannot forgive a lie. That's a key. That also goes to you when you're dealing with your own employees or you're dealing with your customers or your subs. Always be truthful. It pays off in the end. Another rule I like to talk about is deliver good news on time, right? Whenever you're supposed to talk about something or get an update, always do it on time. But more importantly, if it is bad news, deliver it earlier. Okay, no one likes to deal with delivering bad news. No one wants to do it, even myself. But what I've found throughout the years, that even if I had to go get a chewing at a job site, or I knew I was going to have a bad experience because I had to deliver something that no one wanted to hear, it built trust and respect between me, the client, or whoever was involved, because they know then when I give them the solution, I'm going to deliver on that because I did not hide the bad news from them. A good example of this is if you're working on a project and everything is going well and your crew doesn't show up on that day, or if you're supposed to start a project on a certain day and your crew's not available, don't wait till that morning of. Now, the first one you can't help. If they don't show up and you're there, you want to let them know. Just be truthful. I'm really sorry, my crew was sick, whatever, some, corona, whatever the truth is, or they just didn't show up. I'm working on it. I'll get back to you with a plan of action. They'll respect you for that. Definitely want to keep that. And I know you've heard this a million times. It's in all kinds of books. It's all over there. Under promise and over deliver. But not many of us do that. We always over promise and under deliver. That is part of the industry, and that starts at closing the sale. So you want to go back to your sales teams, or if you are on the sales team, make sure you're communicating with the operational section of your company, that you understand the scheduling and the backlog, and don't tell a customer just to get a signature that you can start. I'm going to start your job tomorrow, right? Okay, I'll sign on that. I don't want to. You're more expensive. I was going to go with Joe over here, but since you can start tomorrow, I'm going to sign a proposal and give you a deposit check. You go back to the office and your operation like, well, I can't start. We can't even get material. You got a problem right from the beginning. Bad customer, not going to be a good experience. It's not good. So tell the truth and always come in and say, look, we can start 3 weeks from now. If they accept that, you got the job. Start a little bit earlier in 3 weeks if you can. Again, you're over delivering. You get good relationships. Stay organized. No one likes to be organized, right? We all want to be, but it's very difficult to do. So what I've kind of always done is looked at this, because I am not one. Matter of fact, when I had my analysis, this test and so forth, organization was one of my skills that needed the most work, right? This is a long time ago. So I knew there was no way that I was going to follow the standard organization where I write everything down, I go through the checklist, everything's got to be done and do the same thing at this time. It just doesn't happen. I knew I wasn't that person, and I also knew in this business chances of that happening were not very good. So I want you to look at organization as doing another risk analysis and review of your processes, right? So go back, look at it from where your sale comes in. What happens when the sale comes in? How do you get set up? How does your information get passed to the next level? How do you order your material? How do you communicate back with the client? How do you communicate with your own team? How do you bill your work? How do you get paid? All those things. Take that checklist, run it down, go through it. When you do that and you check through your processes, that's where your organization will come in. Improve on your processes, which will make you more organized, right? And when you're more organized, there's a lot of things that happen. These are some of the best things that I've seen happen over the years when you got an organized system and your processes are working and everything's in place. Keeps your projects moving more smoothly? Absolutely. Increased efficiency. So what we're talking about with increased efficiency is not increasing productivity. Productivity is an item that you can only get so much out of, right? That means that you're going to work an 8-hour day. I don't care who you are. There's still bathroom breaks, there's lunch breaks, there's time off, there's whatever happens in the day. Studies show in a standard 8-hour day, your average construction worker, and I say average through all fields, whether it's roofer, mason, doesn't matter, works no more than about 5.8 hours of actual work during the day. And you're like, wow, that's impossible, but it's not. It happens. So what you want to do is out of the hours that are productive, right? Productivity, you want to increase the efficiency. And when you're organized, because someone doesn't have to waste time trying to figure out how to order something or where your materials are located on the job or whatever the process is in your company, they become more efficient. And when they become more efficient, everything changes for the better. So focus on efficiency. Do we
Hey,
have a
John.
question?
Yeah, we actually have another John who wrote in. Do you have any recommendations for system organizing? Is it covered in your book?
Yeah, we do. It absolutely is covered in there in one of the chapters of what to go through and processing. But that, again, the tips for that is going back to the first way to organize yourself is actually understand what you currently do in your company, right? And again, the best way to start is how do you generate your leads? What's the process for that? How do you handle getting your sales? What's your current process? When the contract's either sold or what's your follow-ups, that part of the sales, learn what you're doing in your own company. Even though you think when you start whiteboarding all of your processes out and you can look at them on that whole big spectrum, that's where you'll see your gaps. And then you get with your team because you want to get input from everyone who is very good at their processes and maybe someone who's not. You want to get all their opinions, right? I'm not talking to everybody, but get that mixed back variety of opinions because that will help you focus on that bigger picture. And that's really where it's at. That's where your key is going to come in. Processes, take them one step at a time. We do cover more of that in the book as well. Hopefully that answered your question. If I didn't answer any questions thoroughly at the end, I know we're having some question and answer. Please feel free to deep dive anything deeper into them. I'm happy to answer anything I can for you all. So higher quality of work. Again, this comes back to organization. If your field staff can focus on putting the work in place and not worry about other items by being unorganized, like I don't have everything I need to do this. I got to put half of this up today and the other half tomorrow because I don't have it. You're not going to get the same quality. Every skilled craftsman, whatever level of skill they're at, it's like the rest of us. We like to finish what we do as we go. So again, organization will improve your quality of work. And then more importantly, the last two, that's what we're here for, right? We're here to be more profitable, make that bottom line black ink go way up. That's what we're here for. And again, once all these other items come in, you're going to get more satisfied customers. Even if it is a customer, you've done all the work on their house, and there's no more to do, you're done, they're going to recommend you to the next person. That's what you want. That all comes from being an organized contractor. If you're not organized, none of these things will happen. So document change orders. Oh, this is kind of like the golden goose and the bad egg at the same time. All right, no one really likes change orders. What I mean by that is, as a contractor, it's a lot of work most of the time, and no one wants to pay them, or they don't feel that you're overcharging them. That's usually the feelings in the industry. But we can help you on that. You want to prepare a change order process in your company. What I mean by the change order process is not having the, not just about the form and how you do it. What happens when there's a change order? Did you, it starts in the beginning of the sale. Have you properly, communicated to your client exactly what's in your proposal and exactly what's not in your proposal, right? We'll just use a kitchen remodel. Easy one to do, or shingles on a roof. They have bought this particular shingle or they bought this particular kitchen cabinet and this is what they're getting. Now they say, oh, I don't like that. I really now look at submittal. Let's go to the next one. Absolutely, we can do that, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, but that'll be a change as we explained to you in the beginning. So if in the beginning, again, it comes to your sales team, well, I can get any cabinet or any roof shingle I want, right? Oh yeah, absolutely. Just, we sign on this, we'll take care of that in the process. So again, I know these are simplified examples and hopefully no one's doing that, but that's it. So your change order process needs to start at the sale, how you're communicating. You need to have a process in place. If you run into something in the field that's a field-driven change order, bad wood, bad framing, whatever the deal is, you run into it. The unknowns, we'll call them. What's your process? Well, you want to be able, one, immediately notify the client you're working for that there's going to be a change. Two, don't wait a week to get the information back from your field to price this. So again, that comes to the next ones. Handle each one expeditiously, quickly as you can. You maybe have to wait for some custom pricing, that's fine. But the point is you started the process. Everyone now knows I've got a change coming. Sometimes changes in just money, it could extend out the duration of your project. You want to let them know that for scheduling. You don't know what somebody's expectations are after they run over, whether they're going to sell the property, they're upgrading it, they're going to be away, whatever the different issues are. You got to be able to tell them it's not only a change in price, it's a change in duration. And again, we all know this, change orders can be a touchy subject with customers. When they sign with you, as much as you've taken your care to explain this out, no one wants to pay more money for anything for the most part. You get some good customers, they're willing to pay, but if you do all this right, you'll have less and less pushback to get paid at the end. You want to get this done in the front. Maintain healthy cash flow. This one I cannot stress enough. As a contractor, even if you offer financing, so when I say you're not a bank, I'm not talking about if you have a financing deal where you get paid and they have the financing, that's fine. But you're not a bank. You are not here to be the person that loans money to the homeowner when it's your cash for the payments. So you get your payment schedules correct, you get your cash flow correct. This is a golden rule. We've all heard this, but it's so true in business and it so gets overlooked to make the next sale, to get the job done. There's other things that can make. Cash is king, right? Cash is king. Without it, you cannot survive. It is like the blood that runs through the veins in your body. If it's drained out, everything stops. That's what cash is to your business. I'm very serious about this point because I've seen it happen to so many contractors that ended up being what put them out of business. It wasn't they did bad work. It wasn't they didn't have sales. It wasn't anything other than the fact they could not get their cash flow under control. So one way I like you to look at this is kind of a simple way. Think of it as a three-legged stool, right? Three-legged stool actually is the most stable stool that you can sit on as long as you got three solid legs. It's better than a four-legged stool. It doesn't tip, so forth. So think of that. So your three legs of your business: sales, operations, and cash, right? You got to have sales. If you don't have sales, you don't have anything. Operations, if you sell something, you got to be able to put it in place, right? So you got to have that operation. And then cash. But here's the interesting thing. You can always look to find ways to get more sales. You can always try to figure out a different way to get your operations to put it down or hire people, even though that's a tough issue today. But the thing about cash is once it's gone, the other two die automatically. So that's why cash, you got to put at the forefront of this entire process. I think I skipped one here. Okay. So we want to talk about don't lose sight of other factors affecting you. So again, we covered in the beginning the positive and negatives a little bit here. Finding installers, weather delays, the normal stuff that as a contractor, whether you've been doing this a year, 5 years, or 30, 40 years, those have always been the issues we face. A lot of us have gotten good at it. It's something we got to juggle. We're always going to have them. You can't control the weather. And you can't even control, finding installers, even though you're recruiting. your training. So some tips on installers. So whether if you're using subcontractor installers, you want to build the best relationships and try to keep the best subcontractors you can. Again, it goes back to communication. Be truthful with them, pay on time, all the things you can do. You want them to become a valued part of your company. That will help you on the installing part. If you got in-house install labor and you want to expand out and get more people like we all do, there's ways you can do it. In-house recruiting, referral plans, they go so far. But I will tell you, there is a lot of contractors out there that are getting into paid training. We'll talk about that in a minute. We're helping with a lot of training in the industry. What I mean by paid training is it's in-house. You actually take the time to set up some mentorships. You take some time to train them through the programs and get them up. Get them from that non-skilled labor to a skilled, journeyman position, whatever trade you're in, as quickly as possible. So those are some things that you can control. Weather, seasonal weather, yes, we know what that is, but we don't know whether we're going to have a bad hurricane season, we're going to have bad thunderstorms. We never know, even though they project the weather, what exactly it's going to be. So you're going to have some severe weather and some abnormal weather to deal with. So two of the bigger takeaways from this is lasting effects from the pandemic. So I'm not talking about wearing masks. I'm not talking about social distancing. I'm not even going to talk about vaccines. I'm talking about the effects from the pandemic, what we talked about earlier. We're starting to see it now. A year ago when this started, we were talking about that, and I will tell you, a lot of people sent us emails, well, we're not going to have material shortages. We don't think you know what you're talking about. We weren't Houdini on it, but we could see what was going to happen just based off of history. Plant shutdowns, a lot of things that happened. And so what we can tell you is, I deal with organizations not only in the United States, I'm on organizations in Canada, and I'm on construction and roofing boards over through the European continent as well. We also have an office in South Africa that we have staffed. So why I wanted to tell you that is not to tell you how large we are or where we're at. I wanted to let you know that we're getting the world picture on this coming in. Example, what's going on in India right now, we depend on India for a lot of our resources. So as they're shutting down and they can't work, that will continue to affect us in later ways. But right now, it's not only materials we're facing, fuel shortages, all the other things come along with it. If you need a truck or a vehicle this summer, you may not be able to get it. I was watching some deep dive reports and doing some research on that. With the semiconductor issues and the shortage of those, your vehicles are not available. They're almost being ordered when you're going in to try to get them. The stocks from the dealership nationwide are dwindling. I think it might have been in the Midwest. They interviewed this deal. It was either Midwest or Colorado, what more west. Wasn't quite, I don't remember that exactly. This was a dealership that normally was one of the largest in the nation, and they always had between 300 and 400 pickups on stock besides cars. They're down to 3. And that's what this gentleman's been running the car business himself for 40 years. They said he's never seen it like this, and they don't see an easy way out. So the effects of this are huge. Shortages, mining, fuel, all these things come in. So these are things, this isn't here to scare you. This is to prepare you that what we're seeing now, go ahead and do your analysis, do your operational planning, be smart, take all those other things we just talked about in here, because you're going to face this till at least first to second quarter of 2022. There is not one manufacturer that we talk to that expects to get out of this in 2021. The more optimistic ones are hoping it'll turn in the first quarter. Then we have the ones that claim they're realists. They're not even being pessimistic. They're claiming it'll be into the second quarter of 2022 before we start to see price relief and material availability back to near normal. Now, I don't know where we're going to go with prices when they're double. I doubt they're going to go back to the current prices of today, but those are things we'll have to deal with. So what happens with that? We want to talk about the last 2 items, economy and inflation. So as we looked at the first slide, construction economy is hot. It's definitely heating up. There's a lot of work out there. Backlog is building, and it's there. It's expected to be there into 2022. So now we have the effects of not being able to get the materials and all the other things, plus a growing backlog. And more than likely, at some point, there's going to be more money influxed into our economy at the Fed level for infrastructure and other things. It is inevitable that some kind of deal back and forth will be cut and more money will be thrown into the economy, which heats it even more. So inflation is starting to be looked at. There's talk about it. We're seeing it. Inflation is a horrible thing for any industry in the country. I remember back in the 70s when inflation went wild. I was talking to one of my coworkers the other day. I remember my wife and I bought our first house in the early 80s after we got married. And our interest rate, which was the normal interest rate then, was 14.5% in a home loan. So I'm glad we're out of that era, but we don't want to get back to it. So you can't control it. I can't control it, even though we'd like to. But these are the things you got to look on. So what does that mean? Cash flow. You want to keep your cash heavy in your bank, reinvest it properly in your business, and do all the other things we talked about to protect you against, overheated economy and inflation as well. So I believe that is what we have for today. So this is how you can get in touch with me. Easiest way is my email. It's jkenny@cotneycl.com, or our website if you want to check out. And one last thing I just want to touch on, and we'll get more information out to Leap, and they'll pass it on. I was talking to them. We have a lot of training through our division. We're coming out, online training, estimating. We have a great estimating program out there that can help people in your companies learn how to estimate, get pricing out correctly, and help you on these things we did. We're going to have some risk management training coming out and workforce training, which hopefully will be revolutionize what's going on to help you get everybody out there, get people. So I just wanted to get my little plug in on what we got coming up for the industry. So I'll turn it over to you, Liz.
Thank you, John. All righty. So I'll open up the floor to take any more questions from the audience. Those of you who are on the call with us today, there is a question submission box located on your GoToWebinar control panel. Feel free to shoot over any comments or questions or topics you would like to hear John expand on. I'll give you a few moments. And we here at Leap are also offering.
We're open. Any question we'll take.
Yeah, I see we do have a couple rolling in. Did also want to mention we here at Leap are offering a special promotion to those of you joining us today live. Have a conversation with us and we'll send you a gift card for lunch on us. If we are a good fit for one another, you'll also get $500 off to use towards your Leap subscription. So whether you are in the business of roofing, windows, siding, flooring, kitchen and bath, or any other home improvement area, Leap can get rid of the redundancies and errors that slow down your sales process so you can get a leg up on your competition and scale and grow your business. So with that, I will go ahead and take our first question. So John, nope, we went over that one already. Thanks again, John. So Dan wrote in, how do you deal with customers who just want to be angry and blame somebody? I've explained why we are taking so long, but I know they are going to give me a horrible review. I'm sorry to hear that, Dan.
Well, that's a great question. There's no canned answer as far as how people react, but so let's just talk about if you do get a bad review, right? Unfortunately, we can't prevent that from happening. I can give you a couple tips on that. I have to assume we're talking about a Google type review online. Always have somebody answer it right away, okay? Explain it. Again, this is where communication comes in. Honestly explain it. Sorry about, the issue. We're sorry you're dissatisfied, but that's why we told you the truth. We let you know what was going on, and do it very nicely, right? That's the whole thing. I know I deal with people in the business that just want to unload back to the client. I said that we do coaching calls on a monthly basis with a lot of our business coaching clients, and I say, nope, stop, bad move, bad move. You cannot make a bad situation, only gets worse with that. But let's just say it hasn't got that far. Offer something further, sit down with them, have a talk at the end, explain to them again why, things went bad, it wasn't your fault. And also, don't be afraid to bring one of your suppliers in or an article showing the industry, what's going on in the industry. I mean, they almost have to have their head in the, buried in the sand to not know that there's delays out there. But again, try to do it at that point. But worst case, if that bad review gets on there, I will tell you, it will not ding you, is nowhere near as bad if you take the time to answer it and explain it, and if it is just an outright offer review, ask for it to be removed. But I mean, that's really the advice I can give you on that.
Cool. All right. We have Tammy who wrote in, we are all facing the same delays and unhappy customers. Do you suggest we send out a letter to all customers explaining the delays, etc.?
Absolutely. It goes back to the communication. I would not only send that letter out, I would take the time to do a phone call first. If it's not a face-to-face, if you can't do it, call them, let them know, hey, I'm going to send you a letter out explaining what's going on. This is an industry-wide problem. I wanted to give you this courtesy call because you're very important to us. You're on top of it. I have people working around the clock to try to do what they can, to get the materials on board. But this is an issue we're facing nationally. Then just follow up with a nice, friendly form letter. And I will tell you that client, most of them will come around. They're going to, as long as they know, again, this goes back to communication. You're straight, honest, and upfront with them. They're going to build a respectful relationship with you most of the time. Again, going back, I think it was Dan, the other question, there will always be that client that you can never, ever please. And unfortunately, we've all had them. The only thing I can recommend is that you fire them as soon as that job's done and don't go back to do any more work for them. I mean, sometimes you have to do that.
One of the is a big situation of, no news being good news. Definitely not the case. It's better to kind of over communicate than under communicate with these people.
Absolutely.
They just kind of want to know what's going on. And I will say to those who are dealing with the frustrated people, I forget which industry article or journal I read it from, but I mean, most people just want to be heard. So a lot of times if you just let them vent their frustrations a little bit and understand, what they're dealing with on their end, that's more than half the battle. So, all right. Next question. Oh, John, you're going to like this one. Sharona would like to know, what is the name of the book?
Oh, well, that's easy. The name of the book is The Blueprints to Your Business. It's a guide to managing your roofing business. Again, I want to clarify, it's not written for commercial roofers, not just written for residential. Any construction that you're in that deals with, home building or any part of that, you'll get a lot out of this. Trust me, you'll enjoy it. I'm very proud of the great reviews that we've gotten, and I don't mean just on Amazon. People who have received the book have taken the time to reach out and say thank you for writing it, which that warms my heart. I'm glad. That's all I really wanted to do, was get something out there that someone could learn something from.
And I will say, we did have the promotion for the first 25 people who signed up for today's webinar would receive, a complimentary signed copy of your book. And we did have a handful of people not circle back with us with their shipping address. So we do have a handful more books. So if anybody would like their signed copy, go ahead and shoot us a note, either in the comments chat box or via email. So I know we're coming up on time here. So let's see, our next question is from Dwayne. Says, great job, John. We are doing everything you mentioned, and from our research on the West Coast, we are seeing the exact same concerns. There are a lot of new contractors, picking up all the excess work, and we are getting calls from botched jobs and jobs the city is shutting down for no permits.
Yep, very typical across the industry, and that happens. So glad you're doing the good things and keep fighting a good fight. It pays off in the end.
Alrighty. And I think this kind of, you touched on it, I think about 10 minutes ago in the presentation, but Rhonda writes in, are prices just going to keep getting worse? When are things going to start balancing back out?
Yeah, I think you're going to see in the next quarter, prices could still double on certain items. We haven't hit the point where I would say it leveled out. Hopefully, the pricing part starts to level out towards the fall, but the availability part probably is not. From all our research and all the things that and all the people we're talking to, this is going to go into 2022 and probably going to almost reach the summer of 2022. So again, I don't have a crystal ball on the pricing, but I think hopefully from what we're hearing that the biggest hits on the most increases will start to level out by third quarter of this year, hopefully.
Very cool. And silly me, I forgot to go ahead and launch the poll on my promotional offer. that I spoke about earlier. So we do have a couple more minutes if anybody else has any questions. And again, would definitely like to thank Job Nimbus for co-sponsoring having John here with us today. All righty. Give you guys a few more questions. I think we might have taken all of our questions, John.
Excellent. Well, if anybody has any later, if they get them to you, Liz, let me know. I'll be happy to answer them.
Absolutely. And, we'll be happy to put you in touch with John, or go ahead and circle back with you guys directly if you want to shoot us any emails or questions. Also, we would love to hear if you guys have any recommendations or requests for specific topics, whether it's like a technical training or something along the lines of today's presentation of an industry issue. We really just try to be, a great resource to you, our home renovation and special contracting community, to really, get us through these tough times that are unfortunately ahead of us, but that we'll get through together. So with that, all right, we do have a couple people that did write in requesting their copy of the book, John. That's exciting.
All right, once you get that to us, we'll get those right out to you, and you will get my signed signature on them. I'm looking forward to it.
Very cool. All right. So thank you again to everyone watching at home or from the office. We're glad you could join us. We'll be emailing out today's recording to you first thing tomorrow morning once we get that processed. Feel free to share with colleagues. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday, everyone, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.